Hi guys, welcome to my channel Human Rights at First. My name is Silke and I carry 49 years of life experience in my mind, and today I like to take you on a journey through my thoughts and ideas, what we can learn from history and what kind of consequences we have to let the horrible story of the Holocaust in the years between 1939 and 1945 have. What is the Holocaust? Holocaust describes specific and horrific violent activities against and the hand of the life of dozens Jewish citizens in Germany during the Second World War by the German government and a lot of helpers in Germany and Europe. When did it start? The first activities shall have started some days after the Second World War began and ended with the end of the war in 1945. That comes from Wikipedia via Google. So if you Google it, you will certainly or perhaps find this statement too, among others. Why is it so important to understand the mechanism, the structures and the character of the development that led to these human rights violences and in the next consequences to a worldwide war? In my eyes, our duty in memoriam to the victims and for the future should be or is to ensure that such a harm for innocent people without any limits won't happen again. Not just to Jewish people, but in the same way as to other groups or single people. Because in my opinion, and in remembering the huge arbitrariness that went along with this genocide, and before and after this genocide, we have to be aware that this can happen to anyone, anywhere, and at any time again. So it is undescribable important to figure out soon when such activities start in a country and to set something against it, even with civil courage against injustice in daily life from each of us. Therefore, it is important to analyze what happened very carefully and define consequences out of it. We need to teach our children and learn by ourselves and with the help of public discussions and think tanks which are open for everyone, independent from the personal gratitude of education, how such developments grow, work and how to identify them. The practice of Jewish justice plus civil courage, but also a trained eye for the identification of corruption, arbitrariness of authorities, narcissistic abuse of certain structures, and hidden torture, like the hidden abuse of school medicine for narcissistic and or sadistic supply and revenges with physical and emotional harm, which is provided also against little children for sexual abuse and child pornography, or punishment in Germany in the frame of organized stalking, also in the modern industrial nations' democracies, are definitely one important key. Every one of you and me and us should be able to answer the question for himself. In case of a hand of a person or a group of people by hidden or obvious violent activities or actions from a state inside its own country, would I be strong enough or courageous enough and will to hide people in my home and provide basic care for them and share my space, my food and other necessary stuff, perhaps also a little bit of money with them? Or will I be courageous enough to help them get out of the country in dignity, or with the help of strategies and methods that help these people in dignity? Because many Jewish people only survived due to this kind of courageous people and behavior before and during the Holocaust. A very important aspect in that is that we will be able to identify similar developments right from the start and set something consequent against it. Conflicts with the tendencies to turn into the hunt of people are there enough on this world, in our world. I like to remind on the COVID pandemic, during which human rights have been violated multiple times and in parts without any limits. I can remember the pictures of a typical favorite holiday and immigration country of the Western world, a nation that is very similar and loved to and by ours, and who shares the same values and traditions like in our country, where small children have been separated from their parents, a trauma for them, surely a trauma for them, and brought to vaccinations. These kids will never be able to see the value of normal, useful vaccines. They will always be connected with a reminding on the separation and crying of their parents, from and of their parents. Other conflicts have the potential to lead to a hunt of people. For example, is gang stalking, activities. A video about it from my side is in progress. Gang stalking or organized stalking, or in other words community stalking, definitely has the structures in narcissistic people plus the potential for it. It goes along with corruption and conflicts of interest in authorities, health care and all public surviving services plus private for the basic public care and needs important services. So these are structures and areas in the public care for people that have a high risk that narcissists and that is, but also narcissists who like to degrade others, apply for these jobs in these specific regions of a public care and abuse these structures. Especially police work is affected, abused by these activities, such as healthcare institutions, psychological clinics, and security companies. It is created by government and or big companies with hands-on important science projects. For example, this is just one example, especially if human rights violences are tolerated to reach the goal. So they want to silence potential witnesses of human rights violences. Narcissism plays an important role too, not just in case of organized stalking, but also generally for the hunt of people. Because narcissists are very revengeful, their attacks are well planned and mostly without any limits. Not occasionally provided years after an argument when you found back your way to daily business. In the last times it happened repeatedly that victims of organized stalking, narcissistic abuse and domestic violence are silenced and or put into the corner of narcissistic behavior. A dangerous game and a sign that we should take a closer look to. For example, the protection of such groups includes the individual right of single persons to ask for asylum. This is very important because there are parts in the Western world who discuss to just close the possibility to ask for individual asylum. And the ask for individual asylum is a very important tool to protect people from hunt. Because, for example, relatives, long-term acquaintances who know how to use the structures and methods of secret services and suffer from a narcissistic personality disorder can, in case of a long-term argue, easily lead to an abuse of state structures for hunting somebody. or in case of being born into such structures in combination with criminal activities against the person and the will of controlling her to avoid a prosecution. So the consequences out of this cruel human rights violences should be a public sensibility in our countries for the possible beginnings and developments of such crimes. Arbitrariness by authorities, a high frequency of indifference in a society against injustice in the same way as corruption and conflicts of interest in the law protecting and providing system are a ground where hate and frustration easily can grow. It is up to all of us to provide civil courage against injustice in daily life and to protect, care and support our vulnerable parts in society so that we create a secure environment in which everyone can participate in the positive parts of life, can flourish as a respected individual and good educated personality with access to appropriate housing, no existential fears, enough to eat, and the all-time possibility to personally grow up to the highest parts in our society. If you want to get more infos about these and other social topics, feel free to check out my podcast for Human Rights, or Human Rights at First at Spotify. That's it for today from my side. If you want to make the memoriam for the victims of the Holocaust on this specific day perfect, this is a good time for a minute of silence and remembering. Wish you a nice and successful day. Yours sincerely, Silke K.